The land that healed the morning mist clung to the valley like a soft gray blanket, wrapping around the old oak trees that lined the dirt road. Sarah May clutched her newborn daughter closer to her chest as she walked, each step taking her further from the only home she had known for 3 years. The baby stirred against her shoulder, making those tiny sounds that newborns make when they dream. Behind her, the Coleman farmhouse grew smaller with each step. She could still hear the echo of Martha Coleman's harsh words from that morning. "You've got no business here now that our Thomas is gone. This house belongs to the Coleman family, and you ain't family anymore." Sarah May had stood there in the kitchen doorway, holding 3-week-old Emma Rose, watching as Martha packed her few belongings into a worn canvas bag. Thomas's father, Earl Coleman, had sat silent at the kitchen table, his weathered hands wrapped around a coffee cup that had long since gone cold. He wouldn't meet her eyes. "Please," Sarah May had whispered, "just until I figure out where to go. The baby needs a mother who can provide for her." Martha had cut her off. "Not some orphan girl with no family and no prospects. Thomas was foolish to marry you in the first place." The words had stung because they held a grain of truth. Sarah May was indeed an orphan, raised by her elderly aunt until the woman passed when Sarah May was 17. She had been working at Miller's General Store when she met Thomas Coleman. With his kind eyes and gentle smile, he had courted her properly, despite his mother's disapproval, and they had married in the small church on the hill. For 2 beautiful years, they had been happy. Thomas worked the family ranch, and Sarah May had made their little corner of the Coleman house into a home. She had tended the vegetable garden, learned to can preserves from the apple trees, and dreamed of the children they would have. Then the fever had come. It swept through the county like wildfire, taking the young and old with equal cruelty. Thomas had fallen ill on a Tuesday and was gone by Sunday, leaving Sarah May widowed and pregnant at 20-2. Now, walking down the dusty road with nowhere to go, she tried not to think about the future. The morning sun was climbing higher, burning off the mist and promising another hot August day. Emma Rose stirred again, and Sarah May knew the baby would be hungry soon. She paused by a wooden fence post to adjust the blanket around her daughter. The baby's tiny face was perfect, with Thomas's dark hair and what Sarah May hoped would be his kind eyes. "We'll be all right, little one," she whispered, though her voice shook with uncertainty. The sound of horse hooves on packed earth made her look up. A man on horseback was approaching from the direction she was heading, moving at an easy pace. As he drew closer, she could see he was older, maybe 50, with silver threading through his dark hair. His clothes marked him as a rancher: boots, worn jeans, a hat that had seen many seasons. He slowed his horse as he neared her, touching the brim of his hat politely. "Morning, miss. I'm Jack Harrison. I own the Double H Ranch just up the road." His voice was deep and gentle, with the careful courtesy of a man who had been raised to respect women. "Good morning," Sarah May replied, trying to keep her voice steady. She had heard of the Harrison Ranch, though she had never met the owner. People in town spoke of him with respect, a fair man who treated his workers well and kept to himself since his wife had died some years back. Jack Harrison's eyes took in her situation with one glance: the canvas bag, the baby in her arms, the uncertainty in her posture. His weathered face showed no judgment, only concern. "Might I ask where you're headed on foot with a little one? It's going to be powerful hot today." Sarah May lifted her chin, trying to summon dignity she didn't feel. "I'm looking for work, sir, and a place to stay, if possible. I'm a good worker, and I don't eat much, and the baby's father passed from the fever 3 weeks ago." The words came out flat, matter of fact. She had learned that showing emotion only made people uncomfortable. Jack Harrison nodded slowly, his eyes kind. "I'm sorry for your loss. What's your name, if you don't mind me asking?" "Sarah May Coleman. This is Emma Rose." Recognition flickered in the rancher's eyes. "Thomas Coleman's widow. I heard about his passing. Thomas was a good man, bought cattle from me a few times. Always honest in his dealings." "Yes, sir, he was." Sarah May's voice softened at the mention of her husband. Jack Harrison sat quietly on his horse for a moment, studying her face. Then, he swung down from the saddle with the easy grace of a man who had spent his life on horseback. "Mrs. Coleman, I wonder if you might be interested in a proposition." Sarah May tensed, unsure what he meant. "I've got a small cabin on my property," he continued, his tone businesslike but kind. "It's been empty since my foreman moved his family to town last spring. It's not fancy, but it's clean and sound. The roof doesn't leak, and there's a good well nearby." He paused, watching her face. "I could use someone to help with the household." My housekeeper, Mrs. Patterson, is getting on in years, and she's been asking for help with the cooking and cleaning. The work wouldn't be too heavy, and you could keep the baby with you. Sarah May felt her heart leap with hope, but years of disappointment had taught her caution. What would you want in return, Mr. Harrison? Fair work for fair wages, he said simply. And I'd ask that you help Mrs. Patterson train a replacement when she's ready to retire, which won't be for a few years yet. She's particular about how things should be done. It sounded too good to be true, and Sarah May had learned to be wary of things that seemed too good to be true. Why would you help me, sir? You don't know me. Jack Harrison was quiet for a long moment, his eyes distant. When he spoke, his voice held old pain. My wife and I, we lost a baby once. Little girl, born too early. Margaret never got over it. He looked at Emma Rose, sleeping peacefully in Sarah May's arms. I know what it's like to watch someone you love grieve for a child, and I know what it would have meant to Margaret to help a young mother in need. The honesty in his voice touched something deep in Sarah May's heart. I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it while we walk to the ranch. It's only another mile or so, and you can meet Mrs. Patterson, see the cabin. If it doesn't suit, I'll drive you to town in the wagon. Sarah May nodded, and Jack Harrison took the reins of his horse, walking beside her as they continued down the road. The morning air was warming, filled with the scent of grass and wildflowers. Birds called from the fence posts, and somewhere in the distance, cattle lowed softly. How old is she? Jack asked, nodding toward the baby. 3 weeks and 2 days. Sarah May's voice held the wonder that all new mothers carry. She's been so good, hardly cries at all. She looks like she'll be a beauty, like her mother. Sarah May blushed at the compliment. Thomas had always said she was pretty, but she had never quite believed it. She was too thin, her hair too plain, her hands too work-worn, but there was something in Jack Harrison's voice that made her think he spoke truth as he saw it. They walked in comfortable silence for a while, and Sarah May found herself relaxing for the first time in weeks. There was something solid and reassuring about the man beside her, something that made her feel safe in a way she hadn't felt since Thomas died. The Double H Ranch spread before them as they crested a small hill. It was larger than the Coleman place, with several outbuildings, corrals filled with horses, and cattle grazing in the distance. The main house was 2 stories, painted white with green shutters, and surrounded by trees that had been carefully tended. Everything looked prosperous, but not sure with the kind of place built by someone who valued substance over appearance. There's the cabin, Jack said, pointing to a small log building set apart from the main house but within easy walking distance. It had a covered porch and windows that caught the morning light. Smoke curled from the chimney of the main house, and Sarah May could smell bacon cooking. An older woman emerged from the kitchen door, wiping her hands on her apron. She was short and round, with gray hair pulled back in a neat bun and eyes that missed nothing. This, Sarah May assumed, was Mrs. Patterson. About time you got back, the woman called to Jack. Breakfast is getting cold, and I've got washing to do. Mrs. Patterson, I'd like you to meet Mrs. Coleman and her daughter Emma Rose. Mrs. Coleman, this is Mrs. Patterson, who keeps this place running whether I'm here or not. Mrs. Patterson approached them with the measured steps of someone whose joints complained about morning movement. Her eyes took in Sarah May's situation with the same quick assessment Jack had made. But her expression was warmer, more maternal. Thomas Coleman's wife, she asked, and when Sarah May nodded, her face softened. I'm sorry for your loss, dear. Thomas was a fine young man, bought my preserves at the church social every year, always had a kind word. Thank you, ma'am. And this little angel must be Emma Rose. Mrs. Patterson leaned closer to peek at the baby. Or she's perfect. Look at all that dark hair. She's going to be a heartbreaker. This one. Jack cleared his throat. Mrs. Patterson, I've asked Mrs. Coleman if she might be interested in helping you around the house. She'd stay in the foreman's cabin. Mrs. Patterson straightened her eyes, sharp as she looked between Jack and Sarah May. Can you cook? Yes, ma'am, nothing fancy, but I can make a decent meal. Can you clean without breaking things? Yes, ma'am. Can you take instruction without getting your feelings hurt? Sarah May almost smiled at the blunt question. Yes, ma'am. I'm used to hard work, and I learn quickly. Mrs. Patterson nodded approvingly. Good, because I don't coddle and I don't have patience for tears over hurt feelings. But I'm fair, and I don't ask anyone to do something I wouldn't do myself. She looked at Jack. The cabin's been aired out and cleaned, but it'll need some woman's touches to make it right for a baby. The stove works fine, and the pump in the kitchen draws good water. Would you like to see it? Jack asked Sarah May. They walked to the cabin together, Mrs. Patterson chattering about what would need to be done to make it suitable. The inside was simple but clean, one large room with a stone fireplace, a small kitchen area, and a separate bedroom. The floors were worn but solid, and sunlight streamed through windows that someone had recently washed. There's a cradle in the attic of the big house, Mrs. Patterson said. Mr. Jack's wife made it years ago, never got to use it properly. It would be good to see a baby in it. Sarah May felt tears prick her eyes at the kindness. It's lovely, she said, her voice thick with emotion, more than I hoped for. Jack Harrison stepped forward. The job is yours if you want it, Mrs. Coleman. $30 a month, plus room and board. Sundays are your own, and if the baby gets sick, you tend to her first, work second. $30 a month was more than Sarah May had dared to hope, for, with room and board included, she could even save a little money for Emma Rose's future. I accept, Mr. Harrison, and thank you, both of you. None of that now, Mrs. Patterson said briskly, though her eyes were kind. You'll earn every penny, I can promise you that. But you'll be treated fair, and that baby will be safe and welcome here. As if summoned by the mention of her name, Emma Rose woke and began to fuss softly. Sarah May rocked her gently, murmuring soft words. You feed that baby, Mrs. Patterson commanded. I'll go start some soup for dinner and make up a proper shopping list. That child needs proper clothes, and you need more than one dress if you're going to work for us. Over the following days, Sarah May settled into a routine that felt like the first normal thing that had happened since Thomas died. She rose early to help Mrs. Patterson with breakfast, spent the morning cleaning and doing laundry, and helped prepare the midday meal. Emma Rose slept in a basket nearby or in the beautiful cradle that Jack had brought down from the attic, a cradle carved with flowers and birds, clearly made with love. Mrs. Patterson was demanding but fair, as she had promised. She taught Sarah May how she liked things done, from the proper way to dust the good furniture to her special recipe for bread that made the whole house smell like heaven. She was patient with Emma Rose, often holding the baby while Sarah May worked, singing old songs in a voice that had been sweet once and was still warm with affection. Jack Harrison proved to be a quiet, thoughtful employer. He worked long days on the ranch, but always had a kind word when their paths crossed. He brought small gifts for the baby, a soft blanket from town, a wooden toy carved by one of his ranch hands, wildflowers that he placed in a jar by her cradle. One evening, as Sarah May was hanging laundry on the line behind the cabin, Jack approached carrying a small wooden box. Mrs. Coleman, I wonder if you might have a moment. Of course, Mr. Harrison. She secured the last clothespin and turned to face him. I've been thinking about your situation, he said, his voice serious. You're doing fine work, and Mrs. Patterson speaks highly of you. But I know you worry about the future, about what happens when Emma Rose gets older and needs schooling, and such. Sarah May nodded. It was true. Late at night, when the baby slept, she often lay awake wondering what kind of life she could provide for her daughter. Jack opened the wooden box and withdrew a folded document. This is a deed to 20 acres on the eastern edge of my property. Good land, with water rights and a view of the mountains. I'd like you to have it. Sarah May stared at him in shock. Mr. Harrison, I can't. That's too much. I haven't done anything to deserve such a gift. You brought life back to this place, Jack said simply. Mrs. Patterson laughs again. There's a baby's voice in the house where there hasn't been one for years, and you work harder than any hand I've ever hired. He held out the deed. The land is yours, free and clear. When you're ready, maybe when Emma Rose starts school, you can build a house there, something that's truly yours, that no one can ever take away from you or your daughter. Sarah May felt tears streaming down her face. Why, she whispered, why are you so kind to us? Jack was quiet for a long moment, looking out toward the mountains where the sun was setting in brilliant shades of orange and pink. My Margaret and I, we dreamed of filling this place with children. Never happened for us, though we tried for years. After she passed, I thought those dreams died with her. He looked at Sarah May with eyes that held old sadness but also new hope. But watching you with Emma Rose, seeing how much love you have for that little girl, it reminds me that dreams don't always come true the way we expect them to. Sometimes they come true in ways we never imagined. Sarah May took the deed with trembling hands. Her own land, security for her daughter that no one could take away. I don't know how to thank you. You already have, Jack said. Every day, just by being here, by letting us be part of Emma Rose's life. That's thanks enough. As autumn came to the valley, painting the trees in shades of gold and crimson, Sarah May found herself settling into a contentment she had never known. Emma Rose grew chubby and happy, delighting Mrs. Patterson with her smiles and babbled attempts at conversation. The cabin felt like home, warm and welcoming, filled with the simple treasures of daily life. May Rose's toys scattered on the floor, herbs drying from the rafters, the smell of bread baking in the oven. One crisp October morning, as Sarah May was hanging quilts out to air, she saw a familiar wagon coming up the drive. Her heart sank as she recognized Earl Coleman's old buck. Beside him, on the seat, sat Martha Coleman, her face set in its usual disapproving lines. Jack emerged from the barn as the wagon pulled to a stop. Sarah May watched from a distance as Martha climbed down and approached him, her voice carrying, on the morning air, "Mr. Harrison, I've come about that girl you're keeping here, Sarah May. She was married to my son, and we have rights where the baby is concerned." Sarah May felt her blood turn to ice. She had hoped the Colemans had forgotten about her and Emma Rose, but apparently, they had heard about her good fortune and wanted their share. Jack's voice was calm but firm. "Mrs. Coleman, Sarah May works for me, and she's proven herself to be honest and capable. As for the baby, Emma Rose is well cared for and loved." "That child is a Coleman," Martha declared. "She belongs with family, not with hired help." "Then where were you 3 months ago when Sarah May needed family?" Jack's voice carried an edge now. "Where were you when she was walking down the road with nothing but the clothes on her back and a newborn baby?" Martha's face flushed red. "We couldn't, that is it, wasn't. We had our reasons." "I'm sure you did," Jack said dryly. "But those reasons don't give you any claim on that child now." Earl Coleman finally spoke up, his voice uncomfortable. "Now see here, Harrison, we don't want any trouble. We just thought maybe the girl might need help and we could take the baby for a while." Sarah May stepped forward, Emma Rose in her arms. Her heart was pounding, but her voice was steady. "Mr. Coleman, Mrs. Coleman, Emma Rose is my daughter. She stays with me." Martha's eyes narrowed as she took in Sarah May's appearance. Gone was the thin, desperate girl who had left their house months ago. Sarah May had filled out, her cheeks were pink with health, and her dress was new and well made. The baby in her arms was obviously thriving, chubby and alert, wearing a little dress that had been sewn with love. "You look like you're doing well. For yourself," Martha said sourly. "I am," Sarah May replied. "Emma Rose and I both are." "Well," Martha huffed, clearly frustrated that her implied threat had fallen flat. "I suppose if you're happy playing nursemaid and keeping house for strangers, ... Mrs. Coleman," Jack interrupted, his voice cold as winter wind. "I think you should know that Sarah May isn't just my employee, she's also a landowner now. I've deeded her 20 acres of prime land, free and clear." The shock on Martha's face was almost comical. "You gave her land?" "I did. Good land, with water rights. More than enough to build a fine life for herself and her daughter." Earl Coleman looked uncomfortable. "That's mighty generous, Harrison." "It's what she earned," Jack said firmly. "Through hard work, dedication, and by proving herself to be exactly the kind of person this community needs." Martha looked like she had swallowed something bitter. "Well, I suppose there's nothing more to say." She climbed back onto the wagon seat with as much dignity as she could muster. "Come along, Earl, we've wasted enough time here." As the wagon rolled away, Sarah May felt a weight lift from her shoulders that she hadn't even realized she was carrying. The Colemans could no longer touch her or Emma Rose. They had their land, their security, their future. "Thank you," she said to Jack, her voice thick with emotion. "No thanks needed," he replied. "You stood up for yourself and your daughter. That's what matters." Mrs. Patterson appeared from the kitchen, where she had been watching from the window. "Good riddance," she declared. "That Martha Coleman has a heart like a dried-up prune. Always did think she was better than everyone else." Winter came early that year, blanketing the valley in pristine white snow. The cabin stayed warm and cozy, with a good fire in the fireplace and plenty of wood stacked on the porch. Emma Rose celebrated her first Christmas surrounded by love, gurgling with delight at the wooden toys Jack had carved for her and the soft dolls Mrs. Patterson had sewn. On Christmas Eve, as snow fell softly outside the windows, Sarah May sat in her rocking chair by the fire, nursing Emma Rose and thinking about the year that had passed. A year ago, she had been married and happy but still dependent on others for her home and security. 6 months ago, she had been homeless and desperate. Now she was a landowner, with a job she enjoyed and people who cared about her and her daughter. More than that, she had found something she hadn't expected. She had found her place in the world. A soft knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Jack stood on the porch, stamping snow off his boots, holding a steaming mug. "Mrs. Patterson made hot chocolate," he said. "Thought you might enjoy some on a cold night like this." That's very kind. Would you like to come in and warm up by the fire? Jack stepped inside, looking around the cabin with satisfaction. Sarah May had made it truly home. Curtains at the windows, a rag rug on the floor, Emma Rose's things scattered about in the comfortable disorder of a well-lived-in place. It looks good in here, he said. Feels like a home. It is home, Sarah May said simply. The first real home I've ever had. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the fire dance and listening to the wind whisper through the trees outside. Emma Rose finished nursing and fell asleep in her mother's arms, perfectly content. I've been thinking, Jack said eventually, about the land I gave you. When you're ready to build, I'd like to help. Not just with the work, but with the planning. Make sure you get exactly what you want. Sarah May smiled. I'd like that. I've been sketching ideas, nothing fancy. Just a simple house with a good kitchen and plenty of windows for light. Maybe a porch where Emma Rose can play when she's older. Sounds perfect, Jack agreed. A house built for living, not for showing off. As the months passed and spring returned to the valley, Sarah May began to understand that she had found more than just land and a job. She had found a community, a family of choice that loved her and Emma Rose without condition. Mrs. Patterson had become like a grandmother to Emma Rose and a mother figure to Sarah May, teaching her everything from cooking techniques to child-rearing wisdom passed down through generations. Jack had become the steady, reliable presence she had never had, someone she could count on, someone who saw her worth and valued her contributions. On a warm May morning, as Sarah May walked across her land with Emma Rose toddling beside her, on unsteady legs, she thought about the future. Someday she would build her house here with its good kitchen and many windows. Emma Rose would grow up knowing she had a place in the world that could never be taken from her. But more than that, Emma Rose would grow up knowing she was loved. Not just by her mother, but by the quiet rancher who carved her toys and taught her 2 gentle horses, and by the fierce woman who baked her cookies and sang her lullabies. The land stretched before them, green and full of promise, and Sarah May knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, she and Emma Rose would face them from a place of strength. They had found their home, and they had found their family. As Emma Rose squealed with delight at a butterfly that landed nearby, Sarah May smiled and thought about Thomas. He would be happy to know that their daughter was growing up surrounded by love on land that belonged to them, with a future full of possibilities. The morning sun climbed higher, warming the earth and promising another beautiful day. In the distance, the mountains stood eternal and strong, watching over the valley that had become home to a young widow and her daughter, place where kindness had planted seeds that would grow for generations to come. This was more than Sarah May had ever dared to dream, and it was exactly what she needed. It was home.